Hello, my name is Dr Rosalie Evans. I feel very privileged and quite emotional to be here at Parliament in front of such a diverse group of people that are all opposed to this legislation. I'm here as a rural hospital doctor and a rural GP, and I'm also here representing the organisation Christian Medical Fellowship New Zealand. But I believe the issues with this bill go beyond religion or philosophical point of view. I am deeply concerned about the end-of-life choice bill, even with the amendments that have been made in the recent debates. As a doctor, I also reaffirm the position of the World Medical Association that's recently been voted on and reaffirmed, that euthanasia is unethical. But I do still respect, as they do, the patient's rights to refuse treatment or unnecessary intervention, as is already legal in New Zealand. I see great potential for abuse through this bill, and the safeguards are few to protect some of the most vulnerable members of our society. As a doctor, it is not easy to detect coercion, even if you know the patient well, even if you know the family well. But often doctors making these decisions will not know the patient or the family well. Elder abuse is common. It is estimated to be experienced by 1 in 10 older people in New Zealand, but it is rarely reported. I do not think the current requirement that an attending medical practitioner do their best to ensure that a person's wish that they express is free from pressure is a high enough standard. These are patients' lives at stake. Depression can also be difficult to detect, and when this coexists with a physical illness, which is common, the person would still be eligible for assisted dying under this bill. We've heard a lot about palliative care already today. It is holistic, and its approach to both physical and psychological pain. And great advancements have been made in this area of medicine, even in the just over a decade that I've been practicing medicine. However, as great as our palliative care and as great as our hospices are in New Zealand, and they work really hard, there are really big issues with funding and access to palliative care still. So a lot of funding for hospices, as you know, comes from fundraising. And some parts of New Zealand struggle to get access. There was a recent article published, I believe, last week in the New Zealand Medical Journal that discussed end-of-life care in aged residential facilities and some of the lack of supports in place in that. As a rural doctor and as someone who lives in rural New Zealand, I would say there's also significant concerns with access to palliative care in rural areas. There are extra barriers for these people. In Canada, all Canadians who meet the eligibility criteria can access their assisted dying laws, but it's estimated that only 30% of Canadians have access to palliative care. That's not a situation I want to see happening in New Zealand. Canadian palliative care specialists, particularly in Quebec, have said that access to palliative care has actually worsened since the introduction of this legislation, allowing that funding has been eroded and less doctors are entering palliative care as a specialty. If people have better access to assisted dying than to palliative care, are we really giving them a choice? I appreciate that this is a complex and nuanced subject. It's not well understood by the general public. When I talk to people about this, people are often confused with what assisted dying is and conflate it with other things such as stopping invasive measures, not treating infections, not resuscitating people, turning enough life supports, giving enough medication to keep people comfortable and pain-free. And as it's already been said, that is already legal in New Zealand, it's ethical, it's part of our daily practice. If that's what a patient wants, we don't do things that they don't want to them. But giving someone an injection to bring about their death is very different, and New Zealand needs to proceed with extreme caution. And I don't feel that the general public are well enough informed on this for it to go to a referendum next year. Therefore, I urge MPs to vote against the end-of-life choice bill. Even if you think euthanasia should be an option, palliative care funding needs to be addressed first, and many more safeguards are needed to ensure that those requesting euthanasia are doing voluntarily and without coercion. Thank you very much.